Happy Migraine Awareness Month, everyone. We're getting to the end of it. Can you believe it? It's been such a huge month. So let's do something a little bit different today. When you hit the Migraine Australia chat group, you see all these hardened migraine warriors talking about things you've never heard of. And one of the things they talk about quite a bit is migraine glasses. Now, you're probably wondering what the hell is that? And there isn't a page on the Migraine Australia website to explain it because you can't really buy them in Australia. You can get FL41 lenses on your prescription glasses, but that's about it. You have to go to the internet and buy them from overseas. And to help us understand what these glasses are, what they do, and why you might want to consider them, we have David from Avulux with us. Hi, David. How are you doing?
Doing great. Okay, thank you for having me today.
It's really great to have you. We've got a lot of fans of Avulux in our membership. So let's start with the basics. What is light sensitivity, and how does it affect people with migraine?
So light sensitivity is essentially an aversion to light. But what's most interesting is up until the past 10 years, we really weren't sure exactly how light was affecting people who are most sensitive. So the biggest research that has come out is about in the early 2010s that really links specific wavelengths of light to increase pain in people who are sensitive, whether that sensitivity is coming from migraine, or now we know within the past few years that it could be other disorders causing light sensitivity, that people are finding this kind of pain pathways to be one and the same between migraine and the other causes. So light sensitivity really is an aversion to light. People can feel pain. They can feel that light is irritating their eyes, causing them dry eye, causing a whole host of other issues, irritation, maybe just putting them in a position where they can be debilitated by light sensitivity alone. And so the studies in the 2010s, 2016s have really shed some light on light sensitivity as an issue and something that now can be controlled for.
No pun intended. So why is it controlling for light so important when managing migraine?
So actually, a study in 2019 where the FDA wanted to know kind of the most bothersome symptoms associated with migraine, they had about over 6,000 patients fill out questionnaires with their doctors, and light sensitivity was rated as the #1 most bothersome symptom by 49% of those over 6,000 respondents. And so light sensitivity can be worse than pain for some people. It can be worse than nausea or dizziness for people with migraine. And so controlling for light is essential in bringing someone an overall general wellness to their life. And for people out there working in front of screens or outside or under harsh lighting, you really can't escape it. It's very difficult. There's actually a Novartis study in Canada where they asked Canadian employees what they were doing to manage their migraine attacks. And they found that about only 22% of them were actually controlling for their environment, whether that's light sensitivity, sound, or smell sensitivity. So it's something that's really under acknowledged and people just don't know how to control for today, even though light is known as a trigger. About 30 to 60% of migraine attacks can be triggered by light. About 90% of people with migraine have light sensitivity. About 40% of those people with light sensitivity live with continuous light sensitivity, not just during a migraine attack.
All right, so tell us about Avulux glasses. How do they work?
So Avulux essentially started in the early 2010s, along with a lot of the other research that had come out pointing to those specific wavelengths of light triggering pain in individuals with migraine. Mm-hmm. And so the early researchers on our team essentially said, what if we could remove most of that painful light and allow in the light that could be soothing or wouldn't worsen their migraine attack or migraine pain as much. And so we are essentially creating something that was new. Like you said earlier, what was around was FL41. That was initially created for fluorescent light sensitivity in the 80s. And it was really associated with the flickering of fluorescent lighting. And that's having to do with kind of the electrical components of the fluorescent lighting in the 80s. And so the way Avulux works is a bit different. Whereas FL41 is really focused in the blue light range and specifically fluorescence, Avulux really followed the science of the last 10 years, where we're really focused on the most painful blue wavelengths of light that were found in this 2010 study with melanopsin. Melanopsin is essentially a photopigment at the back of your eye that's secreted by retinal ganglion cells. And this blue light is essentially triggering those cells to irritation. And in releasing that melanopsin, it can lead to pain. And they even found that it leads to pain in blind patients with migraine that still have their optic nerve connected. The ones that were severed didn't have as much of an effect. So this shows that even for blind people, they can be photophobic. They could have light sensitivity as well. And so in aligning with kind of removing most of that blue light, we did our clinical trials in 2016 was our first one. It's since been published in the Journal of Clinical Neuroscience. But after that study, we actually found that there are additional pathways to pain. And that was found in a 2016 study coming out of Harvard that pointed to red, amber, and blue light being kind of the main propagators of pain. And it's found through this kind of cone-driven retinal pathway where these wavelengths of light in the blue, amber, and red spectrum are essentially triggering these thalamic neurons, which are basically neurons working in the pain center of the brain through the optic nerve. And they're sending bigger electrical signals essentially to your brain and saying there's more activation, there's more excitation, and it's causing pain to people who are most sensitive. What they did also find was that green light actually was found to either not worsen pain or actually reduce pain in a percentage of the subjects in that study. And so Avulux today, we're essentially removing about 80% of that blue light that is most painful. We're selectively removing about 97% of that amber light that's most painful. And we're also removing a percentage of that red light that is painful. And we're allowing in over 70% of that green light. So it's a multi-band precision optical filter. Up until now, what you can find is likely something that's going to block in one range of light. And how Avulux is different is that we're going to multiple ranges and very selectively removing that light, but allowing you to see in a way that it is still color neutral. If you look at some optical filters that remove a lot of light, they usually end up letting in a whole host of other wavelengths, therefore making your world either a dark green, orange, yellow, red, depending on what kind of filter you're buying. With the Avulux filter, even though it might look somewhat tinted, when you take a look at it here, the reality is after wearing it for about 10 minutes, you forget that it's there, and you adapt to basically the view that it's giving you, and it gives you essentially a color neutral experience. So it's not really affecting your quality of life like some filters would when you're really removing up to 80 to 97% of light in certain parts of the spectrum.
Fascinating. There's so much science going into this because there are a lot of blue light glasses around. These are obviously quite different. I mean, as you said, they're doing the red and the amber as well. All right. So tell us about the clinical standard of the glasses. These are top quality glasses. They're not something cheap off the internet.
Absolutely. So everything that Avulux stands for, essentially, it started in the lab. It started with a neuro-ophthalmologist, an optical engineer. The neuro-ophthalmologist is essentially treating patients for years and years, knowing that light is a trigger. Light is something that can exacerbate pain. And so as soon as these studies came out in the early 2010s, we essentially started developing a next generation lens. And so in 2016, that was our first study with that high blue filter, where we did find success in reducing the HIT6 scores of those subjects in those studies. And the HIT6 scale is essentially how is it impacting your activities of daily living. And so Avulux was found to clinically significantly reduce it enough that it is there and making an effect in helping people with migraine. Now, the problem for us was reaching a standard of crossover randomized placebo-controlled study, but you had two glasses and one of them had to kind of color match the active one. And so we're using our technology for both. We actually found that our red light filter that we were comparing it in 2016 to our blue light filter also was helping people. And that's because we were removing so much red light. It's only later when we went back and reconciled and said, why is it that that red light, that very high notch red light filter was actually helping people, that we realized maybe there's something more to it. There's a different pathway to pain. And so what actually happened from that 2016 study is we developed today's Avulux lens. And this is the multi-band precision filter at the blue, amber, red. And we've since had studies since the 2016 study on that blue light filter. That was our thin film filter that wasn't called Avulux yet. And now our Avulux filter in 2019 and 2020, we ran additional studies really looking at the HIT6 scale, which is activities of daily living, and how people can maybe reduce the impact of light on their day-to-day. And also in 2020, we actually compared Avulux to a true clear placebo, where we did a double-blind randomized placebo-controlled study with the active Avulux lens and a clear glasses. So we got basically a pure picture of what's happening here and how is Avulux helping. What we actually found was that we were able to achieve statistical and clinical significance when we looked at all headaches, when people did not take a abortive medication to skew the results, and people applied the glasses within 1 hour of symptom onset. And so essentially what that means is it wasn't by chance that it happened, and it's clinically significant enough that it shows, this is something that should be used and looked at seriously, and it is an actual tool to help you manage light sensitivity and go about your day. So we're able to achieve that, and that's what's most interesting, that we have the research actually behind the lens that we're selling today. That was most important to us because we think that that's essentially everything. We want people to know that what they're buying is actually something that's been proven.
Excellent. So you mentioned they're putting them on at symptom onset. So is that how you use them? You put them on when you get a migraine attack, or can you wear them all the time?
Good question. So the way that light sensitivity works and light can worsen pain is essentially is essential. It's basically a threshold. Light sensitivity can worsen throughout the day. People can wake up with terrible light sensitivity depending on how severe it is for them, or some people can feel just photophobic during a migraine attack. And so what we usually recommend is if you don't have chronic migraine, you can wear them maybe at the onset of any symptoms. But the best way that we see using the glasses is essentially preventatively. You want to prevent it before, prevent any issue before it surfaces. If you know you're light sensitive and you know that light is a trigger, it makes sense to put those glasses on before you're feeling any irritation in your eyes, before you're feeling a glimpse of pain. And so research has shown, outside of what we've studied, that photophobia does get worse as you're exposed to more light. And so by preventing those most painful wavelengths from triggering those cells, from triggering those electrical signals, it might make sense to preventatively go about your day, wear the glasses in front of a computer screen, or while you're under harsh light, or if you're going outside, or if you're facing a window while you're working. It makes sense to prevent the problem before it starts, usually. And so the fact that Avulux really is not injecting anything into your body, and I know that a lot of pharmaceutical medication and even the medical devices out there today that are like TENS units and neuromodulation, they are actively putting something into your body. You're causing something to change internally. Avulux is working in a way that you're just cutting off that painful light from coming into your eyes and basically preventing those electrical signals from going from your optic nerve to the thalamus and essentially triggering those pain signals. And so if you're getting to a point where you're already feeling the pain and the pain has set in, and then you put the glasses on, it's a bit more difficult to get back to baseline. Whereas if you stop it before it gets there to a pain point where you can't control, that's the choice that we'd all want to make.
Absolutely. Managing the migraine threshold is something I'm becoming increasingly interested in. And we need to do more on this. I had this chat in Instagram live the other day. Anyway, so how do we get them? We're here in Australia. How do we get our hands on a pair?
So Avulux today, we do ship to Australia. We are looking to partner with optometrists. We actually are looking to work with some lens resellers who do have clients in countries outside of Canada, outside of the US. And so in the UK and Australia, we're looking to go into the English speaking countries basically as soon as we can. But today we are shipping to Australia from the US. There are, of course, shipping fees, but if you did want a pair of Avulux, you could get them.
And I've got a note here to ask about the frame styles. Apparently they're a little limited at the moment, but you're working on that, right?
We are. We actually just released a made to order option on our website where you can use a virtual try on app. You can wear those glasses, see how they look on you. If you tilt your head down a little bit, you can see whether the temple arms are tilted in or they're tilted out. Obviously, if they're tilted out, it might mean that the frame's a bit too small. If they're tilted in, it might mean that the frame's a little big on you. And you'd be able to see that because it actually does measure how far your face is from the camera. And so that's one of the options we have. Another option we're going to have is when we're working with optometrists, you'll be able to walk into an optometrist's office, choose a frame that you would like, and have the lenses put into those frames for you.
Okay, so we'll be able to get it with our prescription lenses as well then in the future?
We are working on an Avulux prescription option, actually. So we will have Avulux prescription lenses, hopefully through optometrists as well. But the option that we have today is our clip-on option, where we're able to essentially clip them onto glasses. The great thing about the clip-on option specifically is that you can carry them with you. You can clip them onto your glasses. You could even have different frames that you're wearing them over. And so if you did have different prescriptions that you use or prescription changes over time, you can still have that Avulux clip to wear year after year, essentially.
Very, very cool. All right. So what's next for Avulux? Are you going to continue to develop the lens?
So the lens as it stands today, we've reached a point where it aligns with the science. It's essentially what we've always followed. And it's been a very long process. The process started in the early 2010s, so it's almost been 10 years now that we've been developing this technology. We actually did develop it in-house. We make it in the USA today in our lab. in our partnered lab. And so as far as Avulux development, the next things we're looking at are in the future, maybe a contact lens, but the
Ooh.
RX project is being rolled out in the short term, and we are looking to just expand our frame options, like we've said. But the lens it's here. We have the data behind it. It is the lens that's been used in the studies, and so we're excited about where we're at currently.
All right. Thank you so much, David, for making the time. It's been great to hear about Avulux.
Thank you, RK. Much appreciated.
Happy
You have a
Migraine
great day.
Awareness Month.
Happy Migraine Awareness Month.